Hello, everyone, and welcome back to
The Lo and Zo Show.
Today, we are going to be talking all about overcoming your environment.
Yeah, so I think this is a really important topic, especially for people who are wanting to become intentional creators or manifestors of their dream reality, because we do live in a lack-based world, really. And so becoming someone who thinks abundant thoughts can often feel like an uphill battle. So today we're going to talk about how to overcome not only your physical environment, but also the people around you as well, and move forward powerfully, with abundance in mind, thinking a certain way when the world around you seems hell-bent on doing the opposite.
Yeah, so this is when you're stepping out of your comfort zone, whether that be in your mindset or in what you're doing, or if you're an entrepreneur launching a business. It's about overcoming your environment when even you don't feel like you're supported.
All right, so let's get started. I'm Lo.
And I'm Zo, and this is The Lo and Zo Show.
We're coaches and entrepreneurs who firmly believe that an abundant mind is the key to an abundant life.
On this podcast, we're going to be talking everything from how to manifest more money, travel, success in business and beyond,
to overcoming the blocks that are holding you back,
to rewiring your brain so you can easily attract whatever it is you want the most in life.
If you haven't already, be sure to join us inside our Facebook community, the Queen Mind Tribe, for daily tips, mindset hacks, manifesting tricks, and more that'll allow you to build the confidence you need
to manifest the abundant AF life you deserve.
Now let's get started. All right, so first, there is really two things that we want to talk about with this episode in terms of overcoming your environment. So the first one is your physical environment. So that might be, the job that you have, the apartment that you live in, the car that you have, the physical things that surround you that make up your day-to-day life. And then the second thing is the actual people that, your family, your friends, your colleagues, whatever it is, and maybe what they bring into the space energetically. So we're going to first talk about physical environment. And Zo and I both have experiences where we have overcome our physical environment because we needed to in order to create what it is that we really wanted. So do you want to dive into this one?
Yeah, I think right off the bat, I have an example that I think a lot of people can relate to, and that's just growing up in a very small town, which I feel like has a lot of, not to offend anyone, but like small-mindedness. When you come from a small community and you grow up in an environment where, let's say I only had one high school, that's your entire life. And if you don't travel or don't see the world at a young age, like that can just seem very much like your whole entire world. And I always felt that I was meant for something better. I always felt like I wanted to travel. I wanted to leave. But in regards to my environment, it just felt so closed in. Like, okay, yes, you might go to university, but then you'll come back here and this is the way that life's going to be. And that was no one specifically telling me that, but it was just what I was seeing in my environment is that I might go to university, but I'll come back and I'll settle down in this hometown. I'll probably be a teacher and I'll probably get married at quite a young age. Most people get married, I would say early 20s where I'm from, and have children very young and stay there. But I always felt like I was meant for something greater, and I held that belief in my mind, even though I had not really done much traveling until my university days and even after university. But I just knew that I had this inner knowing and this belief in myself that I was meant for something greater and that there was something greater and I had to discover it. So I would often spend time visualizing. I would watch movies. I was very much attracted to movies that were actually based in Italy. And so that's what drew me eventually to moving to Rome. But I would spend time watching things or listening to things that supported my belief that there was culture out there to be experienced. Europe, I was very much attracted to. So I would spend time in like European history class and just really expand on that or daydream about it. And I channeled my energy in that way of like, I'm not always going to be stuck on this little island, that there's a big world out there that I can't really afford to go visit right now, but one day I will. And I kept that unwavering faith. And so in that way, I would say through my life, that's a big way that I overcame my environment or overcame all the society's norms that were attached to where I was born and grew up.
I think that what you said there was so important, which is whatever you choose what the inner narrative is or what your perspective on the environment and the situation is. So your inner narrative about it or the story that you were telling was this is, there is possibility for me to have a life beyond what's available to me here. Yes. And eventually I'm going to be able to get there. I don't know how, I don't know when, but it's like rather than being in an energy and a vibration of stuck, you're in an energy and vibration of possibility regardless of, like, you really just saw it as being temporary. Yeah. And I see this all the time with entrepreneurs, and my story is definitely in line with this, but where they don't see where they're at as being a stepping stone to where they want to go. They see it as like this problem that they need to, fix somehow. And that was definitely the story I want to tell about overcoming my environment. Was a year ago now, a little over a year ago. I was living in an apartment in Toronto. I'd been there for 3 years, and I was running my first full-time business, and I was growing my coaching business on the side. And even a year ago, things had really started looking up, but a year and a half ago, I was working my tail off and not a whole lot was happening. And I was in a lot of stress about money, and like kind of the one constant or one consistent thing I had in my life was this apartment, because it was where I made my money. It was this great little place that I had manifested. It was very affordable, and I just loved it. And I really saw it as like, I'll stay here until I really don't need to anymore. And then what ended up happening last June, and if you listen to my podcast, then you've heard this whole story and you can kind of listen to me along the journey of overcoming what happened. But the little hair salon that I lived above, because it was a storefront apartment on the second floor along Yonge Street here in Toronto. The little hair shop, which had always been super quiet, I'd never heard so much as anyone even talking, to be completely honest, moved out. I guess they went out of business. And the person who moved in was a business owner of a chain of barbershops here in Toronto. And he played really loud, like Beats heavy music. And he had like big speakers on all the walls of this shop, and the subwoofer was right below my bedroom in the apartment. And so for like 11 hours a day, I got Beats in my apartment. And I'm like when I'm in my own space, I like it to be quiet. I don't like too much stimulation, especially when I'm trying to like run my business and think creatively and things like that. So literally within a couple of weeks, my little sanctuary of a space that was the only thing that felt really safe to me at that point, because I was in so much frustration around my business not going the way that I wanted it to, and having invested like everything that I had, my little space turned into this place that I couldn't even stand to be. Like there was no napping in the middle of the day. Part of the problem too was that the owner was like really just very disrespectful to the fact that someone, like, it was an inconvenience for him, the fact that someone lived above. So any kind of me trying to talk to him about, could we make it less loud, or could we, I don't know, move the subwoofer? He was just like, he just basically said, you should just move out. And like, so it was really devastating for me, this place that felt like my home. And I wasn't in a position to move to a new place in Toronto. I knew I was going to probably pay twice as much, and I didn't want to sign a lease because I wanted to travel. So in the end, for me, what ended up having that situation, I mean, I did stay there for 6 or 7 months in that, and I was really unhappy, to be completely honest. And I do think it was like a bit of a kick in the butt that I needed to move forward in the way that I wanted to, because it was so comfortable. I don't know how long I would have stayed there. So now looking back, I'm grateful. But what ended up helping me to move beyond that was at a very intentional visualization practice. And in the summer, I would literally leave and I'd go to the park, and I would sit in a place that felt more just in line or aligned with where I wanted to go. Whatever opportunity I could, I removed myself from the space, which wasn't easy because I was running 2 businesses from it. And then I just got I actually ended up taking a bit of a leap of faith, because I, in the midst of all that, booked a ticket to Italy 6 months out and said, I don't know how I'm going to make it happen, but I'm going to be in a position in 6 months from now where I can go to Italy, I can move out of this space, I can retire my first business. And then I just started intensely visualizing that and meditating on that. And the steps lined up. My business started working. I started having ideas that really paid off for me. And so I just became really determined, I'm not going to stay here longer than I have to. And I started getting very what we talked about in an episode a couple weeks ago about being really insistent on what you want. That's how I took that mindset. I'm not staying here. Something is going to show up for me in terms of me being able to support myself in moving on from this space and this first business of mine.
Yeah, the universe has to make you uncomfortable for you to make some moves. And I want to acknowledge you, Laura, because going back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, your shelter, your home, your sanctuary is so important to us as our stability and our mindset as human beings. And for that to be taken away from you so unexpectedly, you were still in that space, but going to your home, your nest is
and
not
to be
okay.
Honest, looking back, I do believe it was you know, the universe telling me to move forward in a more take more risk in terms of me not just remaining comfortable. But I also think that I attracted it because I was allowing myself to be in so much anxiety about money and so much frustration. I was in a lot of frustration over where my business wasn't at that time. And I've been working on it really consistently for, I don't know, 6 or 8 months. And it wasn't really making a lot of money. And I was in a lot of like righteousness around that, to be honest, of like, where the heck are my results? And so I actually think that in that energy, I attracted more things to be frustrated about, to be completely honest. I mean, I think things do happen for a reason, and I wouldn't have the life, I wouldn't be sitting here right now if all that hadn't transpired the way that it did. But I also think that it's so important to be, even when things don't go your way, because I honestly think that if I hadn't been so frustrated, that probably wouldn't have happened.
Well, you don't know that, because I think the universe wanted you to come to Italy.
Or maybe it would have like only happened for the last couple of months that I had to live there rather than like 7.
Yeah, but imagine like for any of you guys out there listening who you're currently facing some kind of struggle like that, like Laura, you had to get past this every single day.
Yeah.
Like this is where you lived and you worked, and you had to consistently work through that for months.
Yeah.
And just that in itself, that consistency of working on you and your state of mind and your state of being, that strengthened you more than you know.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I definitely had to become someone new and to be honest, I was not super graceful about the whole thing. I spent a lot of time complaining because I was so stressed out and so unhappy in my space. I mean, like imagine I remember literally taking a blanket and a pillow to the park near me to try and nap in the middle of the day on a Saturday because I was so tired. It's really funny what can change in a year. Like a year ago, just over a year ago, I was sleeping in a park.
Yeah.
And you know, now I obviously have a very different life, but yeah, I think it definitely did force me to be aware of how I respond to situations and not see it. Ultimately, it changed because I chose to have power over it and chose to figure out a way to get myself out of it. And it did. Within a couple of months, I ended up going from hardly ever making money in my business, like maybe a grand each month on average for the first, like almost the first year, to having my first 15K month from a launch idea that came to me in that meditation that I was talking about. And I don't think any of those things would have happened had I not had that. I mean, maybe it would have happened, but it would have taken a lot longer. So anyway, so I mean, I just know what it feels like to be in a place where you're really, it was very hard for me to feel abundant. And that's essentially what we want to talk to you guys about today is like, how do you feel abundant when your physical environment or your surroundings don't support that? Mm-hmm. And it was very hard to feel abundant in a space where I just I had so much anxiety about it. I went home to my parents every single weekend. I started seeing clients only a few days a week so that I didn't have to be there. And more than that, it just kind of felt hostile because the owner downstairs didn't, if he saw me, he would make some snide comment about, I don't know. He was just he really wanted me out, to be honest. So anytime I would say anything to him, he'd just be like, well, you're free to leave anytime. So anyways, I think the way that I found the feeling of abundance in all of that was by visualizing something in the future. And it sounds like that's what you did as well in terms of
yeah, I always channeled my energy towards the future. There's so many opportunities and possibilities, and they're just over the hump of where I am now. They're just over the mountain, literally. Right. And yeah, and I think because something that can be super powerful, and actually we talked about this on the last episode, is being grateful for what you have right now. But sometimes it's really hard to do that if you're in a really hostile work environment, or you're not happy where you're living, or you're in a not good relationship, or whatever it is. So sometimes it's more productive to not try to feel grateful for things as they are if you're really struggling with something, and instead project your imagination into the future and find things in the future that you're excited about. Yeah.
Because the energy of excitement and gratitude are very, very close.
It comes back to always just checking in with how you're actually feeling and making the decision to move your internal compass towards something that feels better. So adjusting
in any
your focus
way that you need to. So if you can't find that with what's around you right now, find it in things that you're working towards.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So our next thing that we're going to talk about is people in your environment, and how to, if you're really working on, say, your money mindset, on your success mindset, but you've got people all around you that are kind of being the devil's advocate. And I've definitely worked with a lot of clients who have this happen for them, is where they hire the coach or they join the program, and then all they get from their friends and family is reasons why it's not going to work.
Yeah.
Right. Reasons why it's probably really risky to even decide to start a business, because the chances are that it's not going to be successful.
Yeah. I can definitely think in my life, the year before I moved to Italy, and I wrote a lot about this in my book, Beauty and the Breakdown. But first, when I started the YouTube channel, it was my creative outlet that I was seeking. And I just knew that I had to do it. I started to do it. And I didn't really tell very many people that I was starting a YouTube channel, because it was quite a spontaneous decision. I literally discovered that YouTube was a somewhat vlogging platform. And then 2 weeks later, I had a channel and was making content. And I received a lot of backhanded comments from a lot of people, or just resistance, I would say, in general, was the kind of energy that I felt around it. And it hurt to know that some of my closest friends, or my best friends at the time, were not supportive of what I was doing, because I was excited about it. Mm-hmm. And I think through that journey, I realized that, okay, if this is what I need this creative outlet, and I need this exciting thing to work on, because I didn't have very many friends in Toronto, and I had free time, and I wanted to spend it creating something, really, and giving me hope about the future. I'd just gotten out of like a really terrible relationship, and I was just building me back up to me. And I knew how important it was. So I stayed dedicated. And I remember, like, that's when we first became friends. Mm-hmm. And you always bring up about, like, so you had like 200 subscribers, and you were just so excited about your YouTube channel.
I loved that I mean, I could just tell even back then. And I think it's funny, because I, at the time, was doing YouTube as well. And I think I had like 14,000 subscribers. And I think that was part of why you like responded to me when I messaged you, or I think I commented on one of your videos, and I was like, I'm in Toronto too, and like, I'm vegan and I'm vegan, and you were, I wonder if I could find that actually. I have no idea what video it was on, and you were like, oh my God, like
I was like a friend, because, I think I said, like, I started my YouTube channel with the intentions of a creative outlet and to make friends. And then I remember, Laura, you commented, you said you found me on Bumble BFF, and you were just coming to check out my YouTube channel because it's in my bio. And I was like, oh my gosh, a YouTuber, and she's vegan. I didn't know any vegans. I had no friends who were vegan when I went vegan, I was making all these life changes, and I had no one who I felt like I could relate to. And then I attracted Laura into my life. I feel like I manifested you.
And vice versa. Well, and I mean, that we didn't even intend on including this in today's episode, but you can, even if you've got a lot of people in your life that are not aligned with you in terms of just the goals that you have, the abundance mindset you're working on cultivating, you can be intentional about attracting other people into your life who share that.
Yeah, and it will happen. The more you put your energy, like just like the Lo and Zo show, the more that we're putting our energy of exactly who we are and our mindset and our beliefs into the universe, we're going to attract like-minded people. Those of you listening are like-minded people, and we have attracted you, and you have attracted us. And that's how it works. And it's so cool. And so I guess through that process of like my YouTube channel is a lot of you guys actually reach out and say, Zoe, like, how do I start a YouTube channel? I've been thinking about starting a YouTube channel. Don't think, just do. Just as Laura and I mentioned in manifesting the studio podcast, is that we had some limiting beliefs about it. We had some doubts about the sound quality, but we just did it. Yeah. You just get past yourself, and you just keep doing it, because you have to make your beliefs stronger than your environment. You have to make your beliefs stronger than the resistance that you're facing, whether that be through people or circumstances around you. And, even moving forward, I wouldn't move to Italy if I didn't have the YouTube channel, because the YouTube channel created this belief of opportunity for me. I started to believe in myself because I attracted free things here and there. I attracted friends from like around the world. So I knew that there was still something much greater, and that's where I channeled my energy. And I mean, if you guys have read my book, you know that when I announced that I was moving to Italy, to friends and family, like, people literally thought I was having a quarter-life crisis. Like, you can imagine, this is less than a year that I've been out of an abusive relationship that, the law is involved. And so, like, people literally thought that I was losing my mind, probably, or I was going through something really crazy, but really I was just choosing myself for the first time, and people had never seen that from me. I was just shy and a people pleaser.
Well, and that's one thing, like, you can really choose to get unstuck from your environment. Like
Yeah.
you had, I'll never forget, and I think I've talked about this before, but I remember dropping something off to you at work one day, and this was a couple of months before you went to Italy.
Yeah.
And you came out to the car to get it, and your face was just like the picture of stress because you were in such a hostile work environment. But you chose to leave that. And that's actually one of our tips, is to trust yourself and give yourself permission to leave behind what doesn't serve you. We're not saying go and quit tomorrow without a plan, but we're saying you don't settle for this hostile environment in whatever regards, whether that's a certain person in your life or people in your life. Like really stand up for yourself and what you deserve, because that's the first way. That's sort of like another tip we had was setting these like energetic precedents or boundaries where you're saying, I'm just not, I don't want to be here anymore.
Yeah, I'm no longer accepting this.
Yeah, exactly.
And so that's like me quitting my job, moving. It was like me saying no to the opposing energies and the opposing forces, like my hostile work environment. Like obviously I was working with people who are not supportive of me, or when I started my YouTube channel, friends who were not supportive of me. Those relationships faded away from my life because I realized that they weren't true and they weren't supportive of me growing. And you can go through life or you can grow through life, and you have to actively choose who's going to surround you and support you through that. And if you're accepting toxic energy around you, you're telling the universe, like, I'm okay with this. Like, I'll accept more of this. But if you cut that off in any regard, then, the universe recognizes you've learned your lesson.
Well, and one other thing I want to bring into this episode that we didn't actually talk about before we started recording is that everything in your life is a reflection of you. So if you're getting a lot of backlash from people who, let's say you've started a business and they're saying, this isn't going to be successful for you or it's really risky, ask yourself, what in you does that strike a chord in? Because it's just a mirror for you. Whatever it is that you've got going on vibrationally, energetically, is what's being reflected back to you in other people, in your environment, in your day-to-day interactions, all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, one way to really quickly cut that out is to recognize it and then say, okay, I'm not available for this anymore. Because it is just showing you whatever it is that you've got going on. So if you're getting a lot of backlash, I know for me, like, because I had a lot in the beginning, a lot of fear of judgment. And so I was judged, right? And so the more I let go of that, the less I seem to get of that kind of response.
Yes.
Right? And I think it really comes down to being your own biggest cheerleader and just trusting your intuition over everything else, because you're going to have people that it's like, don't make yourself wrong or don't make yourself feel bad if you're getting that feedback from people being like, well, I must be putting this out there. It's just normal. If you're going to start doing something in your life that is just for you and you want to build a more abundant life, you're going to have some of those doubt-based thoughts, right? So choose to just show up for yourself, love yourself, and choose that you want the abundance, you want the outcome you're working towards more than you want, settling for less than what you deserve because of what
it's
other
about
people.
you being dedicated to yourself and like you recognize or like the intuition. Like if the more and more that you can connect with that part of you and honor that part of you, that's when you just become in absolute trust. You just live in a state of flow and you accept and invite abundance into your life. Yeah. So I think to sort of like sum up what we'd say in terms of overcoming your environment when you're working on creating something for yourself, and maybe that's just a more positive mindset. Maybe that's a hugely successful business or something like what Zoe's done in terms of building an audience or just putting something creative out there. And you've got maybe not the environment for it right now, or you've got people telling you it's a bad idea, or just their like scarcity mindset around money and you're trying to create more money. 1, choose to be your own biggest cheerleader and do it for yourself. 2 is to channel your energy towards where it is that you want to go and be less consumed by what's around you currently and more in the process of creating something more. And then anything else? So in terms of like important takeaways? Yeah. So in regards to the energy too, it's just adjusting your focus and always adjusting it to something that feels better for you. So instead of focusing on this person's not supporting me, like Laura said, the beats downstairs are crazy and I can't handle them. Okay, what would make me feel better in this moment? And for example, do what Laura did, take the pillow and the blanket and just go to the park.
Number 4 is to just take action, regardless of the discomfort, regardless of the people that are being naysayers or whatever it looks like for you. Just take the action, take the imperfect action, put it out there, and just be okay in the discomfort. Because a lot of the time, the fear of judgment from other people or the things in our environment that we perceive as being obstacles, it's just in our mind. Or it's way less, like it usually ends up being way less of an obstacle once you actually take the action and come up against it.
Yeah. When anyone else thinks about you is none of your business.
It's so true. All right. Thank you guys so much for listening.
And we'll see you again in our next episode.
Bye. Thank you guys so much for spending a piece of your day with us and tuning into the Lo and Zo Show.
If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to rate it and share on social media. Be sure to tag us.
Until next time,
stay abundant.